Hello, welcome to The Secret Mind. My name's Julian. It's Hypno Monday, and I wanted to start to honour my commitment to doing something about sleep, and there's so many ways to start. It's such a big subject. I'm going to try and fit it in with the contemporary medical advice and make everything fit. Now, contemporary medical advice, if you go and see somebody for sleep, probably doesn't feel that dynamic. I've already suggested that giving sleeping pills is about the last thing I want to do, but the primary expectation. And when I've done consultations like that, and if I'm doing them at the moment, if they happen to come to an emergency room where I work, emergency department, I'm in the UK, not in America. All these Americanisms, what's going on? In the ER. We're in the ED now, which shares an abbreviation with erectile dysfunction, much to my distaste. If somebody comes into that, they may feel it's an emergency. Poor sleep can be traumatic, I have no doubt. I don't think I'm speaking particularly from experience. I sleep pretty well. I get to sleep pretty quickly, I think. But no doubt it can be, well, it's used as a torture, isn't it? Poor sleep is water torture, sleep deprivation torture. So it can lead you to insanity and every step along the road to that along the way, if you know what I mean. So it has to be taken seriously. Yes, sleeping tablets may break a cycle, but they're only ever recommended short term. Also, there are such places as sleep clinics, and they will see a certain, presumably tiny distillation of people with sleep problems. In which case, are they really a very significant part of the solution? I was reading one writing by a sleep clinic professor who almost bragged with such, they bordered on, is the right word, hubris? It's a gentler word than the one I was thinking of, about how he would turn away any patient who didn't bring a sleep diary with them. I thought, oh great, well they're going to learn their lesson then, aren't they, that you need to see their sleep diary. Fair enough. It might be an important tool, so they get an idea of the picture. But are there tools and resources so brilliant that that very unique sleep diary has its own personally tailored bunch of solutions? I wonder. I was reading a case I was working on, not seeing the patient yesterday, and it was somebody who had been to a sleep clinic, was waking up more than 50 times in the night, according to their sleep studies, because they'd proved this with their observations and electrodes, I assume, more than 50 times a day. And they went, I think they ended up on some melatonin, which is never supposed to be used anything more than short term, really, and with some cognitive behavioural therapy, which I'm here to tell you was totally ineffective. So I wonder how many options they've got beyond that for their treatments when they get their perfect diaries. Or if the rest of us just have to get on with some solutions and finding better, quicker, simpler answers. And because I think hypnotherapy has a good, honest part to play in these sort of things and doesn't have side effects and doesn't require electrodes, usually, then I hope they're doing that. I suspect they're not. But that is probably because they may not have the skills. What do you do in those circumstances? What's that? Yes, you go and get the skills. That's how primary care works. If you find you're lacking in a certain skill, you can go and acquire it and then apply it. And the barrier to entry for doing that, given that it's largely a certain understanding and the use of words, and perhaps a certain state in the body if you subscribe to that theory, certainly a state of relaxation at least, then there are easy skills that you can get if you can be bothered. So I wanted to talk about that, and I thought I would do a very simple baseline hypnotic pattern. I tend to call them patterns. You'll have to forgive me that. I don't think that's common. It's just, it demystifies it. A process, I suppose, but there's certain, I just like to call them certain patterns that you're allowing someone to develop with you if you do talk somebody through a hypnotic process. So that's why I'm using that word. I may change it, but it just feels natural. And I thought we'd do that. And then I thought, well, in fact, it's not quite the first stage, is it? Because the first stage is to take a history. I can't do that with you because you're not here with me, or, well, you're here with me, but you're not here with me now. And you're not here with me here. So you're going to have to do some of that gap filling. And in these sessions, I want to try and leave you space to fill those gaps in. And if those gaps are filled in only in your mind, that's fine. That's perfect. It's between us, we'll have the full conversation. You'll fill in the gaps that are specific to your life. And sorry, I just hesitated there because every time I do one of these, about 5 minutes in, my camera tells me I have performance issues. I don't need the reminder. Have pity. So I was going to do a hypnotic pattern today and realised that was a little premature. For somebody who works in ED, that's probably reasonable. Because if somebody left a consultation with me, and probably, hopefully with just about any doctor, they go away with some sleep advice. Now, the sleep advice I direct them to, because nobody has leaflets anymore, we give people web addresses, links, and hope that they'll look it up and print it out and go through it. What are the chances? This is the sort of document I'd refer to somebody to do. I've just printed out off my own printer, NHS document on sleeping problems. And I thought, rather than go straight into the induction, which I may, if I've got time, do this today and publish it maybe tomorrow if I've got time, is go through the document and see what advice I have been recommending people to get. Because obviously you give somebody a direction like that or a pamphlet and it's a way of getting them out of the room. That consultation has to end sometimes. It's hard to leave people empty-handed when their expectations are so high, and a leaflet, or at least now a link, is something that's better than nothing. And also, if they're going to solve this problem, they do probably need to show some commitment themselves. And the next time they come back, you've then got a right to ask them, what did you think of that document? And then look hard into their eyes and try and work out if they ever read it. But what's in it? Have you read it? Have I read it? I've not read it as much as I've done over the last half an hour to try and summarise it for you. So I'm just going to, I've highlighted a few bits, so I'm going to look at it and tell you what I think of it. It's about 6 pages long. I'm going to try and zip through it quickly. It makes a couple of good things, nothing I don't think that you could make in a page, but then I like succinctness, and I like rapid solutions to problem rather than slow solutions if they're available. It starts with a few quotes. I toss and turn for hours on end. I just can't seem to get off to sleep. I'm very restless. I have no trouble sleeping. In fact, I sleep way too much. Describing various sleeping problems. This booklet aims to help you understand your sleep problem and to learn some simple ways to sleep better. And then it goes into some stats, bizarrely quoting, one study in America found that only 5% of adults reported never having trouble sleeping. So apart from the fact that that's not a very exciting sentence, it's not even a relevant country, and it doesn't really grab you as a statistic if the idea is supposed to grab you by the throat. Got to get engagement in these things, get people's blood pumping with a bit of interest if you can use statistics, not just fill space. This is the problem with academic writing. It's boring, Now, this isn't academic. This is written for the lay public. So it's got to appear academic and yet be in the sort of language that you and I would hopefully use if we were talking to each other in a room. Except it has to be slightly more formal than that. And often these documents fall between so many stools, they don't hit any of them. So, moving on. A recent study found that as many as 30% of the adult population are affected by sleep problems. In particular, women, children, and those over 65. Having trouble sleeping at some point in your life is quite normal. So that's the point. Don't worry, it's quite normal. Okay. And then it does the usual sort of toddlers might get 11 to 14 hours, 8 to 10 hours as a teenager, but 7 to 9 recommended for adults. Older adults, aged 65 or over, may need slightly less sleep, but the recommendation is still around 7 to 8 hours. I mean, what does that mean? They may need less sleep, but the recommendation isn't going to change. Oh, no, sir. So the point is, from my point of view, is that you don't need to be the sleep police. People are different. They'll have different requirements. We all know the stories of prime ministers who've run the country on 2 hours sleep for 20 years or whatever. Okay, but so it's not a fixed number. Well, sorry, it is a fixed number. The recommendation is 7 to 8 hours, but it's not. It is. I hope you find this helpful, this clarification in the document with my commentary. If someone's retired from work, they may be less active and therefore require less sleep. I mean, it's gold, isn't it? It goes through the sleep stages, varying from very light to deep sleep. And REM sleep, most people know something about REM, even if it's just shiny, happy people. And notably missing off their greatest hits album. Why? Are they embarrassed about the accessibility of the number? We don't know. REM sleep, or REM sleep, if you prefer, occurs several times during the night and is where most dreaming is thought to take place. Non-REM sleep is divided into 3 stages, like a staircase: light, deeper, deepest. We are looking for deep sleep. They go on to say that's about 25% of your time spent there, but we're looking for deep sleep. That's our aim. And when we look at the hypnosis, that's what we're going to be asking our brain to look for. So that is that. Then it goes through a couple more stats. Old people tend to have more restless and more easily disturbed, but sleep should still be refreshing. I mean, nothing is really usable yet, and we're on page 2. Are there any other changes in sleeping patterns? Yeah, okay. So what causes sleep problems? So the document is quite useful in it reminds you to look for causes. And this is a worthy thing. If I was doing a talk on sleep as a medic, of course, that's going to be your main thing. And it's easy to do an intervention for it with hypnosis and forget about those things and miss the people out there who are having those problems ignored. So, or being missed. So this is important, and it recalibrates me. When I'm talking to you, usually on HypnoMONDAY, I'm going straight to hypnosis stuff. When we talked about the pain, it was on the assumption that you'd had causes of your pain, reversible causes or treatable causes, looked at by your doctor and found that the pain that you were left with was just useless pain. It was lingering on, but had been properly looked at to see if there was anything that needed doing. I'm assuming that is the same with your sleep. So report any symptoms that are relevant to your doctor. One of the most important is getting up and going to the toilet. You think, well, I've got disturbed sleep, but it's for a secondary reason, isn't it? You've got disturbed sleep because you've got to up and go to the toilet every 5 minutes. So those are reasons that there may be some medical treatment, and there's some good medical treatments for bladder control, which will give you control over that. But there's sometimes some investigations that do need to be done for that. But this is the problem of not being referred to the right place and not asking the right questions. You go and think you've got a sleep problem, you get directed to a sleep clinic, and you should be in a urology clinic having urodynamics testing to see if you need something to properly improve the stability of your bladder wall and give yourself some quality of life again. And then the sleep will hopefully follow, and the blessed relief. So they mention that's their number 2, talk to your GP. Very common. 60% of women, 70% of men aged over 65 get out of bed at least once a night to go to the toilet. They mention menopause, pain as a reason for poor sleep, obviously. Other health problems can also affect sleep. For example, diabetes and high blood pressure. Can they? Not sure how high blood pressure affects sleep. Can't think of a mechanism for that offhand. Must be true, otherwise they wouldn't have put it down there. Does that mean the higher your blood pressure, the worse you sleep? Let's see the data. They don't reference it, of course. Some medicines can interfere with sleep, so it's worth checking with your doctor. Yes, and equally the sedative potential for people on multiple medications, polypharmacy as we like to pompously call it, are exponential. They're accumulative, as are many of the side effects with multiple medications. So when the number of your medications accumulates, there are sometimes diminishing returns, and the side effects can double a lot quicker than the positive effects. So watch out for that. Sometimes medicines can be rationalized by pharmacists. Sometimes that's a great job for them. Sometimes it's not a great job them seeing patients who've been referred from A&E, or like a relative of mine said at the weekend, sent from 111 to see a pharmacist about a knee injury. That's not a great use of a pharmacist. When she asked her if she'd been trained in it, she said, "Oh, we're all trained." That's not a good use of a pharmacist, is it? Not to have proper training for something that can be significant medical problems. But drug-related review, that's a good use of their time. It's all about fees, of course, in those cases, but that's for another day. Besides, I don't really understand how they work. They talk about stress, worry and anxiety. When someone is stressed and anxious, they may often find it hard to get off to sleep. No kidding. Bereavement, very important one. One of the few times I don't have difficulty giving a very short course of hypnotic, a sleeping tablet. It's an impossible situation, and poor sleep puts you in that vicious circle, and medication, short-term use of medication to break a vicious circle is probably its best use. And what I have noticed down the years of reading a lot of people's stories and talking to them is you'll sometimes give them, you can be really stingy, give them 2 tablets. You can give them 1 tablet if you want. 2 tablets, or 5, say 5 tablets, or 5 days worth of tablets, is they often don't use them. Somehow knowing they're there, maybe even the process of being able to talk to somebody in a consultation about this terrible event, bereavement that's happened to them, might actually be the treatment, and the medication was the red herring. Sometimes that bit may be enough. Not saying that you would give out placebos. I would if I could get away with it, but not in those circumstances. But our days of being able to prescribe people ascorbic acid, which of course is vitamin C, and imply that it's something other than a placebo, were stuffed when we realised people could turn up to what we used to call the chemist, and the chemist would then say, "Oh, you do realise it's just vitamin C, don't you?" So you've instantly broken your lifelong relationship with your general practice patient, who's totally lost trust in you because you spotted that you're giving him vitamin pills instead of horse tranquilizers. So that's that. They mentioned the surroundings. Surroundings, of course, with sleep are reversible things you can do something about. Everything's worth looking at. Too hot, too cold, too hard, too soft, too noisy, too light. Sleeping in a strange place can also affect someone's sleep. Tell me about it. And people who work shifts could have disrupted sleep. Yeah, no kidding. Smoking and drinking alcohol, that finally gets a mention. And we're on to another page. Don't worry, we're racing through this. Anything useful for you so far? The reversible causes, that's worth thinking about. The most common sleep problem is trouble getting to sleep. What we used to call initial insomnia. I always kind of like that phrase because it's always a gymnastic to try and, what's initial insomnia? But that's what it is. It's the getting off to sleep. And that is that. So what sort of sleep problems do you have? Is it getting to sleep, staying asleep, waking too early, poor quality sleep, sleeping too much? And you can tick the box here. Tick the boxes that apply to you, it says on this form. But there's no one to show you ticks to, so that is just to keep you occupied. A little bit of inappropriate form design. Keep a sleep diary. People love a sleep diary. To look for patterns in your sleep can be very helpful. I think a sleep diary done by a formal sleep physician is much more of assistive. I do have one around somewhere, but it'll be more than just a diary of text. There'll be scoring systems as well, I would imagine. Things that they can validate probably and publish as research. But does it change the treatment options that much? I'm interested in questions that directly affect what you're going to do as an intervention. Not just collecting data for data's sake. There's a lot of questionnaires in health, and particularly in mental health, that are used to supposedly monitor. But patients become very wise to them. You'll see this when we talk about the suicide risk, when I talk in my Unpunished series, the diary of a police doctor, which I'm doing on this channel, and you should definitely look into. People become very wise to the same questions, and the questions you're asking don't give you the answers that they think they do, that you think they do. And you need to be very cautious of that. It's easy to document a patient's answer or a person's answer to your question so that it essentially just protects your note keeping. But you have to suspect that you're sometimes not getting the answer that is the truth. And sometimes you have to ask a question twice and in different ways, change the words, sneak them in by the back door, just ask them again once you've got a better rapport, and that gives you the truth. And that's when you understand what the problems are, so you don't waste your time treating the wrong problem, and in which case you've only treated yourself, and because the subject, the patient, knows you haven't treated them, because they know what the problem is. So you have to work a bit harder at understanding. That's why medicine's so hard to do by questionnaire, despite what certain private operations would have you believe. 111. And so there is no right amount of sleep, so they go through that. It's also possible to think you have a sleep problem when in fact you're getting enough sleep, but it's different from what you expect. Yeah, if you can just change your expectations. My expectation if I go to bed is that I'm going to have a terrific night's sleep. I would recommend that expectation exclusively to you as well, to adopt it. And when we do the hypnosis process, just adopt that one. If you've got a better one, adopt that. But if not, why not try mine on for size? Or any other trick that your conscious or unconscious or subconscious mind directs you to. And that's what we'll work on next, once we've gone through this sort of information. We've talked about the causes, then they talk about overcoming it, the problem, worrying about not getting enough sleep. Are you expecting too much sleep and worrying about not getting enough? Some people lie in bed and worry about not sleeping. As we have already mentioned, worrying about not getting enough sleep makes matters worse. Thoughts such as, I'll be exhausted tomorrow, I'll never get to sleep, I must sleep, it's ruining my health, may run through your mind. The effect of this is that you feel tense and anxious and less likely to drop off to sleep. which in turn leads to more worrying thoughts. Well, you will have to reading that, won't you? I mean, that's what negative suggestion is. Once you plant these things saying this leads to this, there's a point. Well, I'll ask you, at what point does explanation turn into negative hypnotic effects on the subconscious? These are things that force you into certain patterns, which is interesting because in the next session, the next part, which they call solution, they refer to try to find ways to relax and clear your mind. Try? Oh, come on. You know, anybody who's seen The Matrix? Don't try to hit me. Hit me. Star Wars, do or don't do. There is no try. And yet here it is. Try. So I would say don't try. Don't try is a lot better. Don't force that on yourself. Trying is miserable. Hypnosis allows you not to try and find the same solutions and more. Try to put sleep out of your mind. So anybody who knows the basic sort of psychology is that the key phrase is there. The key suggestion is put sleep out of your mind. That is a negative suggestion. That's the opposite of what we're trying to do. It's prefixed with the words try to. Try to put sleep out of that mind. So you inbuild failure into a negative suggestion. I mean, it's elementary. And yet they go on in the next sentence to use a psychology term, which led me to believe this might be written by a psychologist. I don't know. It's hard to tell. Nobody signs the authorship on these things. Using your breathing as an anchor. Now, an anchor is a term that's used by a lot of us in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. I did my training, like many people did, with Richard Bandler, co-inventor of it, in very expensive courses many years ago. And those run on the same sort of principles as hypnosis and hypnotherapy. But they're using those things, using your breathing as an anchor, so if your thoughts wander off, you simply bring your mind back to focusing on your breathing. Deep muscle relaxation can also be helpful. Focusing on your breathing. I mean, that's pretty boring, isn't it? Are you really going to bore somebody into sleep? You might be able to do that, but it might be better to focus in a more pinpoint way. Isn't that the opposite of boring? Can you just bore yourself to sleep? I mean, you might be asleep already. I can bore you to sleep. I get that. In which case, simply play this every night. Or play the relaxation recording we did a couple of weeks ago. Play that at night and let that get you off. So they're using these psychological terms. If your thought, I mean, just if you had to, fine, if it works for you, try it, try anything. But don't feel bad if looking forward to boring yourself by listening with your own breathing feels like a miserable reward at the end of the day, and you have my permission not to do it. You have to do something else instead that's a little bit more creative and imaginative to occupy and distract your process into a smoother flow and allow you to be a good sleeper. So deep muscle relaxation can also be helpful. This can be done by gently tensing and relaxing the main muscle groups in your body and focusing your attention on the relaxed feeling as it begins to spread through your body. Sounds like a hard word. I mean, what you're supposed to clench and unclench your way to sleep. I'll give it a go. Let me know how you get on. Good luck. Good luck. What about audiobooks? You know, they're a good way of focusing your concentration. You can do it with the lights out. It's the one good reason for having your phone by your bed. You can set it on BBC iPlayer to tell you a story and knock off after 30 minutes or 20 minutes. Just your phone will have a timer. It'll have a sleep timer on it somewhere most likely, and it'll just stop. Hopefully you'll be asleep, and the following day you'll wonder how much of the story you got listened to, and you realise you only got 3 minutes of it listened to. Why? Because we're primarily in our formative years, we understand that sort of storytelling is related to going to sleep. If we were told stories as children, and even if we weren't. So that is a good thing to do. There are many free recordings available online of relaxation techniques, as well as those that can be bought. There's a sentence. I'll just use the one on this YouTube channel, or use my storybook that I'm narrating to zero readership. I'm going to get through it if it kills me. So that is that one. And they're going through the problems again. We've done the toilet, going to the toilet, are you in a lot of pain, obviously. Relaxing can help with pain, as being tense can make pain worse. Oh, well, don't over-clench if you're in pain then. Not sure about this clenching therapy at all. Loss and bereavement, we've mentioned, something you could go and see your GP about, and there's great services there to help with that. And sometimes you do need a little sedative for a short time, and that's a genuinely useful thing to do, and actually for a doctor I think feels quite rewarding. It's something you can positively do. It's just that giving sleeping tablets to people all the time just on request is wrong. Anxiety, depression, stress, if you're suffering from that, then your sleeping is probably affected. Well, there we are, another hypnotic suggestion for you. If it wasn't before, it is now. More negative anchors that they lock in on these documents. But it's a truism anyway, isn't it? The following might help. Here we go. If your mind starts to race, try to use the relaxation techniques described earlier. I think that was the clenching and the breathing, boring yourself with your breathing, such as focusing on a relaxing image or on your breathing. By making your breathing deeper and slower, this can decrease your heart rate, which in turn reduces cortisol, one of the hormones released when we're anxious. Well, there's nothing like a bit of science, is there, to really add credibility to a document. I mean, does anybody really care if you manage to reduce your cortisol like that because you've breathed your heart rate lower? I mean, not useful. Shouldn't have made the edit, really. We don't need to just dot in silly little bits of unuseful science, because this is what the pseudoscience people do, and we've got to be better than that. Even if there is some truth behind it, it's not a useful way of communicating with people. It's like saying that, you know, antidepressants, serotonin reuptake inhibitors, they increase your serotonin. Oh right, so it's lack of serotonin that caused my depression, is it? No, it isn't. Story for another day. If you notice your mind starting to worry again, try saying to yourself, I will deal with this tomorrow, and bring your focus back to your breathing. Basically, anxious, worrying thoughts will keep us awake, and calming, happy thoughts will help us sleep. There we go. Sound advice that nobody could have guessed. I mean, this is supposed to be inspiring people with information they don't know, and to be instantly accessible so they can put it in. How many people would have read this far, do you think? If you write a document nobody reads, there's no point. It's a lot like doing a YouTube channel. Jotting down a few things we are grateful for before bedtime has found to be helpful in getting a good night's sleep. If worry is a big problem for you, it may be helpful to set aside 30 minutes a day worry time. Boy, oh boy, that's something to look forward to. Now, I know it's definitely written by a psychologist. Somebody must have thought that's a great idea. Take a pencil and pad and write down everything that is worrying you. And it is. I mean, I get that. Writing things down, writing therapy is actually super powerful. But scheduling 30 minutes a day of it? Please. Really? Taking each problem in turn, ask yourself, is there anything you can do to solve the problem? If no, score the problem out. Score it out. That's a very particular word, isn't it? Score the problem out. I thought I was going to end with score the problem in a scale of 1 to 10. No, you score it out with a scorer and move on to the next problem. If yes, write down every possible solution you can think of. Choose the most helpful solution and write down all the steps you're going to need to take. Write as much as you can. Write down any obstacles and how you might tackle them. Make a plan for when you are going to deal with the problem. So there's a lot in common with the hypnotic process in there. Nothing new under the sun. In the hypnotic process that we'll do soon, we'll be doing that. But we'll be doing it without content. We'll be doing it without writing. And we'll be doing it without that level of effort. And we'll be recruiting your subconscious mind to do it as well. The only advantage of this is the idea of writing something down that makes it permanent, feel more permanent, putting your hand through that motion, maybe writing it a number of times, like lines at school, but we don't want to do lines at school. We don't want to make it that painful. But writing, generally, a great idea. How about writing it and making it rhyme? I've done some things on poems. Rhyming makes things funnier. It makes things more engaging. It makes things more memorable. You can make a rhyme, you can make a funny rhyme out of a depressing problem. You can. And notice how differently you will feel about it. And as soon as you feel differently about it, it's not the same problem anymore. You can't feel as bad about it anymore. It's been changed, you've been changed, and improvement is breaking in. So it's not accidental that, you know, on the other things I'm doing on this channel, they look miscellaneous, they are. But if everything tied in, I tell you a ghost story, and then we'll talk about the power of story. We'll talk about poems. It'll look like I'm just filling the channel for a day with something ephemeral, which couldn't be further from the truth. And those will be useful tools. So if you introduce those threads into your life, they can perform the miracles for you. And you're doing it for yourself. If you have trouble with a rhyme, go into rhymezone.com. A nice little rhyming dictionary. It'll solve any rhyming problem you have. So, I mean, how about, isn't that a great way of just feeling totally different about something that is dark matter and turning it to something that is succinct, accessible, that you can box. That you can, and once you've got something in a box, you can move it into the distance. You can move it into the line of sight or out of the line of sight. When you're dealing with trauma and pain, yes, bereavement, those things are going to be visited. They should be. But on anniversaries, not every hour of every day. So it'll help you reframe things. When they're talking about these problems here, how about if you do a worry, if you must do a worry 30 minutes, can you do it over Skype with a friend with coffee? If you're all to discuss, I mean, group therapy that's the way to do that. Then you could solve each of the problems. Then it'd be a laugh. Do it in the evening, have a Prosecco. I won't criticise you for it. Then you've got a group all solving each other's problems. There should be a name for that. Community? It'll never catch on. Right, so whenever you find yourself worrying, remind yourself to save it till your next worry time. Oh God, how miserable. Sometimes if worrying thoughts pop into your head at night, just asking yourself, is there anything I can do about this? No? Then let it go. Yes? Jot it down quickly and tell yourself you'll deal with it tomorrow. Well, I'll look forward to it. Hey, I might be wrong. Tell me if that's worked for you. I will eat my words happily. Self-help booklets like this one are available. Yeah, we know. Talk a bit about restless legs and sleep apnea. They're specific medical things. Restless legs is a strange thing. It used to be rare as hen's teeth, and then it was either massively underdiagnosed when I was a junior doctor, or it's massively overdiagnosed now, and I have never worked out which. It can't have changed in incidence and prevalence so much in the last decades. You may find that getting help in another area has a knock-on effect on your sleeping. No kidding. Join a club. Your sleeping may well right itself if you can solve some of your other problems. Yeah. Even so, you may have gotten into some bad habits which are not helping you get off to sleep. And hypnosis is brilliant for addressing bad habits and habits in general and breaking them. Lying in bed reading for hours, watching TV and drinking coffee may be fine for some people some of the time. Okay? However, when a sleep problem starts, it's most helpful to try and get rid of any bad sleep habits that may have built up over the years. And they have a checklist here. We'll just do this finally, because the last page is just a little summary of do's and don'ts that we've already mentioned, and half of them be on this checklist. Don't worry. Always good advice. Hard to do, but good advice. People's sleep varies. There's no correct amount of sleep. That's just that. The surroundings we talked about. Noisy, too quiet. Earplugs may help. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? Someone always wants to stick something in you. They want to put something in your eyes, something in your ears. If you have difficulty with sleep apnea, they're going to put a plug or a mask on your nose. And, you know, if we can get control without having to use those things. Dentists, they want to put mouth guards in. You know, if you're a grinder, you look like a polythene man if you take up all these stuff. So yeah, if we can do it with ways that don't involve the hardware, that would be nice. Software approaches, by upgrading your software. Light, too light, too dark. We're thinking about electronic devices, unless you're setting your mobile phone to a relaxing YouTube channel. Comfort of your mattress, too hard, too soft. Pillows, too hard, too soft. I use box pillows. It makes it feel like a hotel pillow. They've got the seam at the top. It makes it look a bit more square. Feels luxurious. I recommend them. You're welcome. There isn't a link in the chat. I don't mean chat, do I? Yeah, down below. Is that the chat? Yeah. A temperature of room. Too hot, too cold. Stick on an electric blanket. You need to now, because rather than heat the whole house. Don't get into a cold bed. I don't. I simply say this. Alexa, blanket on.
Okay.
Alexa, blanket off.
Okay.
If I'm asleep, I don't say the second one. Is your partner keeping you awake? Earplugs or spare room may help. Well, it won't help the relationship. Oh, it might help the relationship. Yeah, and the mattress. I like to have 3 mattresses, and I put a little pea beneath the bottom mattress. I can still feel it. Yeah. Food and drink, caffeine. Chocolate contains caffeine, so no fruit and nut in the bedchamber area, please. There is some evidence that having a malty drink at bedtime can increase the length of sleep and reduce broken sleep. I can recommend a pint of Hobgoblin as a particularly interesting IPA. Cigarettes, if you do smoke, try to have your last cigarette at least 4 hours before bedtime, because smoking last thing at night can keep you awake, as nicotine is a stimulant. But also, you want to be awake as much as possible, because smoking is already going to knock 20 years off your life. So it's understandable why you want to enjoy as much of it as possible. And we'll be covering this in the later video series. In the meantime, please make a decision to stop smoking, and then when you've made the decision, I'll meet you on the other side with some videos that might help. And drugs, medication. Examples are certain drugs for asthma and for migraine. Asthma makes people, the inhalers, salbutamol, makes people very jittery. And whenever you see somebody who's come in who's anxious, who's also got asthma, they've always used their inhalers, which has made them extra jittery, which has made them use their inhaler more, which has made them even more jittery. The heart's racing. It's compounding the effects of their anxiety. It's very hard to tell at a glance someone who's just ultra anxious over someone who's got all the symptoms of asthma. So that really is a vicious cycle. Yeah, so be careful of those things. Alcohol, it's best to avoid drinking large amounts of alcohol close to bedtime. So best to drink the large amounts earlier on in the evening. Thank goodness for 5:30 kickoffs. Consistency. Try to get a consistent timetable so that your body knows where it is. Going to bed and getting up at roughly the same time is much better during insomnia than trying to catch up on lost sleep or going to bed early or napping at odd times during the day. Funny, isn't it? Sometimes people recommend power naps. In particular, getting up at the same time in the morning, if possible, is helpful. If you feel the need to sleep in at weekends, try to make it not more than an hour. I mean, you know, these are you don't want to be the pleasure police. An hour. Okay. Okay. or 2 perhaps. Pre-sleep routine. Try to use the hour before going to bed to unwind and prepare for sleep. Dim the lights, listen to some calming music. Yeah. Don't watch Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol like I did last night. Although it sent me off with a happy heart. Electronic devices. Yeah, smartphones. So, any chance you could leave it in the corridor? I mean, you're not going to, are you? Any chance you could turn it off? I mean, I'm taking it for granted you've got night hours built into it, so that it's not going to beep after 11 o'clock. Or earlier, hopefully. So, yeah. Or use the phone to, use a bit of BBC iPlayer, download a story, listen to that, use it to help it. There'll be lots of sleep apps as well, won't there? Probably have things that you might like. There used to be a really good one called Pizzazz, P-Z-Z-A-Z-Z. It was a program that you bought individually, and now I think it might be an app. That was very good. It randomly generated a lot of sort of ambient noise, but it was fun. And activity, gradually increase your daytime activity and exercise. Yeah, no brainer. Tire yourself out a bit if you can, and give your body something to rest from. Get up. If you haven't fallen asleep within 20 minutes, get up. How would you know unless you're looking at the clock? Don't lie in bed feeling tense. Listen to relaxing music, read a relaxing book, or watch something boring on TV. Don't watch something interesting on TV. It's a much better way of focusing your attention. Some people find that having a warm, milky or malty drink can help. That's why I have a mini fridge of Old Speckled Hen by the bed. And bed for sleep. Make sure your bed is associated with sleep. For example, don't watch TV. Don't watch TV, eat and talk on the telephone in bed. The only exception to this is sex, which can in fact help with sleep. Not if you drop off halfway through. And I assume they mean don't watch TV, eat and talk during sex as well. So be careful out there. It's a hornet's nest. These simple guidelines, don't worry, we're going to sign off here. These simple guidelines really can improve your sleep, but they take time. Negative suggestion, don't let them take time. Please be patient. Your hard work. Negative suggestion, don't allow them to make you think of it as hard work. I don't write them. I can only point it out to you. Try and don't see it that way. It'll be totally unhelpful. Please behave. Your hard work, your easy work will pay off, although it may take many weeks to develop new sleep habits. Don't believe that. It won't be helpful. And again, these techniques have been proven to help many people, but take time and hard work. Do something. Change something. Don't think it's hard work. That's not helpful. So that's taken a little longer than I thought. So we'll wrap it up there. I want to work on incorporating some of that into a much more palatable way of thinking about it. Some of the points there are useful. That's a long document. Could it be better? Yes. Does it need rewriting? Yes. Am I going to have to do it at some point? Probably. But for the moment, I think that's the sort of advice that most of these documents are going to give you. Some of which is important, particularly isolating any cause of why other reasons you might be getting up in night. But from here on in, I'm going to be talking about direct action that is taken using hypnotic patterns, relaxation patterns, and allowing your unconscious to do some of the things it says in the document, but without the trying, without so much hard work, but with some commitment, just to see it through and play along, and with a creative sense of play as opposed to feeling like it's detention. You're already in detention if you've got poor sleep patterns. So, I've forgotten how to sign off on these things now. See you tomorrow.